Hello, you are watching and listening to the episode of Leaders and Engineers. My name is Norefan Yusupov, and we're broadcasting from Estonia. Today our guest is an expert in supply chain management, a Bachelor of Applied Science and Master of Science in Supply Chain Management with more than 7 years of experience in supply chain management roles. He was working in such companies as ABB, Ericsson and Rimi. And he is the founder of a startup developing an app which will help people to make better choices while doing shopping for grocery. And please meet Siim Brazier.
Hi, I'm Siim. Nice to meet you all.
So how do you do today?
I'm doing well. It's not that nice weather, but otherwise absolutely fine. How are you?
I'm doing also fine. It was quite many meetings today.
Imagine.
But, I think this is the final meeting to which I was aiming for, and now excited to see
the highlight, right?
Yes, exactly. And you said this is not like the perfect weather. What would be the perfect weather for you?
A bit colder and sunny. That's like the ideal weather where you still have like winter coats on, but you can wear your sunglasses and you have like really bright sky and the weather is really, really nice, but it's cold. That's the best weather.
I would say this is quite unusual to hear. So it's like a gourmet in the weather.
Yeah. It's a niche.
It's cold. You talk about weather.
Exactly.
Well, great to hear that, and I believe all your other answers will be also quite interesting, and for people it will be really interesting to hear your opinion on different topics, especially when it comes to work environment, leadership, and management.
Yep.
And about this format, now I suggest we try a job interview mode, and it's a fictional company. We imagine that there is some company and you're applying for this company for the leadership position.
Okay.
And are you ready?
I'm never ready for an interview, but let's go.
and yes, and by the way, in the end,
yep,
I'll say it's stop. We stop the job interview mode.
Okay.
And we'll ask about your reflections. How do you feel about this job interview?
Okay.
How is it similar to your overall experiences?
Yep.
When you had job interviews.
Okay.
Yep. Good.
Yeah, good. Let's start.
Great. Hello, Siim.
Hello.
Thank you for applying for the position in our company. Our company is producing a cutting board that feeds breadcrumbs to birds. And it basically looks like this one. And you will see this on your screens.
Uh-huh.
So basically you cut and then it fits
the birds, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Cutting edge technology, right?
Exactly. And it's nice for people who don't want to clean up after themselves. They're lazy to do that, so they just can feed this to the bird.
Okay.
And tell me, why have you decided to apply for this position?
Well, I think that when I read the ad and it was related to leadership itself, I felt that it is the role for me. I have demonstrated in previous roles that or leadership roles that I am good at it, and I felt that reading the ad that I felt that I need to apply for this job, that I can bring. I think value to this position and the team itself. So I asked myself, why not? Right?
But have you learned already about this product and about the company, what we're doing?
Well, I don't think that I knew about the product per se, as it seems it hasn't yet launched or has launched. But it sounds interesting and fascinating, and probably it helps to solve problems in the kitchen, that when you're cutting bread, for example, or or other, things that are related to bread products that you can dispose of straight away. So it's also a valuable problem. So why not? Brings value to the customer.
And if we talk about your experience, I looked through your LinkedIn.
Yep.
And you worked in Rimi, ABB, Ericsson, these quite big companies, but different industries.
Yes.
What are the key differences? You were in more or less similar roles in those companies.
Yeah, more or less.
But if you compare them, what are the main differences in work there?
I think that the dynamics of a food supply chain is much more complex, and it starts with basically growing the product, and then from different distribution networks. It's very, very complex, the supply chain itself. I'm not saying that technology supply chain is not, but to me it seems that the food industry is a bit more complex than it comes to technology. And when we talk about, for example, margins, right? In retail, the margins are very, very tight. In technology, I would say they're a bit broader. So if we take, for example, retail, something like 2 to 4%, I think it is, right? In manufacturing technology, it can be up to, 30%, for example. So there's a huge difference. And also then if we're talking about moving money in the supply chain itself, in the technology industry, of course, the sums and figures are much more higher than they would be in a food chain itself. So I think those are the key differences. Yeah. And of course, maybe in retail, a lot of focus goes towards the end customer as well. And there are many factors what go into the supply chain planning itself that are related to consumer behavior. In a B2B market, it is a bit different, right? So I would say those are maybe the key elements there.
Would you say that B2B market is more predictable?
Well, I wouldn't say it's more predictable, because a prediction or a forecast of something, where many companies trying to still figure it out, right? So I wouldn't say that it's more predictable, but I would say that if you're taking in retail and planning, consumer goods, then it's much more volatile, I would say, than it would come to a B2B market.
But if we speak about the current situation in the supply chain, and you know very well with electronics industry, there were certain challenges. When this all started, like kind of on the verge of this COVID pandemics, was it expected, or were there already some indications? Could you please kind of like give, this retrospective on that exact time when it started and how then developed further?
Okay, so during that time I was working in Ericsson. So when it started from basically China, right? So the entire supply chain, or most of technology, is manufactured in China. I don't think that anyone really understood how big of a problem it would be, and could predict that you have different problems in different industries. Because when it hit, then yes, some suppliers were not performing, right? And then it escalated, and during the pandemic, then you would have different bottlenecks in different areas. So I would say it moved from a manufacturing capacity issue or them not being able to perform to the transportation sector, right? So you had manufacturing opening up, but at the same time, you had capacity problems in transportation. Nothing would move. You couldn't get flights or book flights. Flights were extremely expensive, and so on. So I would say that globally, those companies that had a bigger buffer stock of end goods were in a much more, or even components at that time, or had even bought in advance or increased their buffers, were much more in a better position than for those who hadn't, right? Or hadn't put any effort towards that. And then, of course, the market dynamics were changing, that when a customer was buying something, maybe you didn't have that product in stock, but you could offer a similar product that would do basically the same things, right? So I think those were the bottlenecks are actually shifting throughout the period into different areas. And yeah, companies trying to survive, basically. I would say that were the key aspects there, supply chain.
So if we speak about supply chain resilience,
yep,
which is kind of a buzzword in the supply chain management, how would you, if you take specific actions, what does it mean to be resilient in the supply chain?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I think that, there are various answers to that question, of course, but if I would take resilient, that you're able to supply any good at any point of time, meeting any expectations of the customer, but at the same time, not increasing your own cost. So I think that a resilient supply chain today would mean that when you're looking from a supplier's point of perspective, that you have, for example, for one component, you have multiple suppliers, right? So you mitigate that risk of not actually getting that component in when you need it, right? The second aspect may be having, higher buffer stocks in order to meet those different variances in demand at the point of time. Having multiple manufacturing sites, if we're talking about the manufacturing supply chain, that some are focused on R&D, but some are focused on mass production and so on, or doing both at the same site. It doesn't really... you can do both. But at the end of the day, I think that the resilient part is that basically you are able to meet customer demands. I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day, or any demand, basically.
So if I understood correctly, it's also, we can say in generic terms, but it's also case by case, depending.
Of course, it depends on it depends on the supply chain and supply chain setup, and if it's a smaller companies, how much are they planning to invest in resilience and so on? Because resilience doesn't really have a return at the end of it. From a customer point of perspective and revenue stream, of course.
It means kind of like non-value.
Yeah. Investing in resilience, do you see a return? I don't know, maybe.
But let's say you do everything right from the point of resilience perspective. And you have this buffer stock, and you also raw materials plus the stock of the finished goods.
Mm-hmm.
But what will be basically, what are the risks with that one? Does it mean that you will you might keep you might get such a tempo, such a size, that it will be kind of putting you into kind of momentum. That you under this weight you will have to be running and doing something.
I mean, any type of strategical decision you take has an impact somewhere else. So, I mean, it's like you want to decrease buffer levels at the I don't know, final assembly or the final stock. That means that maybe you're not able to supply extra demand if you may have extra demand on a certain product. So I think that in this case, I mean, there's not any right or wrong answer. Having a higher stock would mean that if the demand suddenly stops, you would be left with inventory levels that you have nothing to do with at the end, right? So then that would be already a financial issue at the end of the day. If we're talking about goods in retail, that would mean basically that you have expiration dates. I mean, even in technology, you have some sort of expiration dates, right? But yeah, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer as such when it comes to supply chain preparation, and it depends on the strategy and what the company wants to achieve, what is the cost they want to take, and so on. So,
but if we talk about Estonia specifically,
yeah,
and whatever is the industry, be it food industry, the electronics manufacturing industry, do you find this to be resilient in the supply chain? It's harder here, or what are the specifics of the supply chain management in Estonia, so to say?
I don't think we can take it anymore that we are in Estonia, so we have any more, or that we're based in Estonia, so then it's much more harder than it would be anywhere else. Of course, now I think that as we have basically a globalization of companies, right? That we're not talking about anymore having one supply chain. We're talking about company having multiple supply chains, and it's global, right? We cannot talk anymore of having just a localized supply chain, and they're very intertwined with each other. So, I mean, global aspects have geopolitical situation as we are in today, or war and so on and whatnot, right? Localized,
but let's say there is Estonian manufacturer that doesn't have presence in other countries.
Yeah.
But all the raw materials coming from other countries.
Yeah.
And does it the position of Estonia? Does it makes it hard from the perspective of delivering this good and driving the cost up if compared to some other location, if there was manufacturing set up there?
I mean, you will if your presence is unknown, or let's say you're starting up a company that requires a supply chain. Let's take it from that perspective. Then in that sense, you're going to take a higher cost anyway, for sure. And then you've got other situations where when you're ordering goods or trying to get goods in, right, then comes in the cost factor, because as a smaller company you can't maybe put that much cost into raw materials and transportation, and compared to, for example, with Ericsson rates, where you are able to take, I don't know, transportation costs and fees and so on in order to meet customer demand, right? But a smaller company can't do that. So then this planning part comes into consideration, needs to be a very, very vital aspect. And I mean, having maybe, I don't know, good collaboration with different vendors, or having multiple vendors for then that one component. I mean, that's a question on what.
But if we speak specifically about Estonia,
okay,
and you have a choice where to produce.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say if it's in Estonia, or maybe somewhere in Asia, closer there, what would be your choice for the mass production?
Here or then Asia?
Yeah, from the perspective of the supply chain.
I mean, of course, Asia wouldn't be a question because you have raw materials that you can. But at the same time, I mean, at the end of the day, it depends. Like, if I were to produce in Asia and ship to the US, is there any limitations, right? That's another topic that from here maybe you don't have such big limitations or issues. So, I mean, if we're speaking about purely having a supply chain and not taking the customer aspect of that or market aspects, then I would say that China and having closer to the supplier, of course, because the cost is less and the volumes are much higher, right?
Mm-hmm. And moving to the topic of you've been in supply chain management for most of your career,
mm-hmm.
but now you are you're founder of the startup.
Yes.
And as I understood, you're also managing. You are the head of the startup, or how's the structure?
I mean, let's call it as it is. It's a company that we're trying to build, right? I don't consider myself being a CEO because it's not a company yet. It's just an idea that we're trying to introduce.
But you did register, or?
Yeah. I mean, I am the founder of it, but I don't like to call myself. I mean, any person can be a CEO, right? I mean, you can be a CEO. I can be a CEO. My point is that I feel that it's not relevant to what the company wants to create. There's in the company there's two people right now. It's me and my business partner, and I could be defined as Grandmaster. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day what the title is.
Okay, but we briefly, when I introduced it, I told what I was doing, but I think you are the best to explain what you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
It's the Bebo.
So Bebo is basically a virtual assistant that helps you to find the best price for your everyday groceries, but at the same time finding you the best price for any type of shopping list you may have, right? Our edge is that we want to take into consideration the full experience, so you are able to send your order straight away to any retailer basket, so then you can purchase it there. So you have the full view of all these shops in one place, and you don't need to have multiple browsers open in order to compare those prices or whatnot.
So in this app, it will be a mobile app or format?
Not the mobile app, no. It will be browser-based solution right now. We're not. I think mobile apps have its advantages and disadvantages at some point, but not right now.
And in this browser, basically version, you will be able to pull from different sources and compare those prices?
Yes, correct.
Will you be able to make order straight away from there?
You will be basically... so how it works is that you choose, let's say, all of your goods that you want to buy. And you get, right now, 4 options. The options are dependent on you can find the cheapest price for your basket, right? And taking into consideration then the shipping costs and packaging costs. And then after you have chosen a selection on what type do you want, one then courier to bring your goods, or 2 or 3, then you're able to send that shopping list to the retailer's basket and purchase that from there. So that's like the entire concept. And what does it do? What does it do? The value proposition there is that, first of all, you're able to save on an average 15.7% rate. And the second, it just saves you time instead of you looking at different e-shops, putting together the same basket, right, and then choosing which one to buy, right? So there's a lot of advantages to that.
And talking about markets, are you focusing on the Estonian market only?
Right now, yes. That's to start with right now. The ambition, of course, is to grow to the Baltics, hopefully, in different areas. I mean, having only grocery goods we have a bigger picture that we want to achieve. But to start with, yes, it's a domestic market right now.
And I would assume there is a lot of work needed for the front end, back end programming, this IT stuff.
Yes. So
How very
it's you take 3 steps forward and 5 steps back. So it's like, of course, right now the main focus is going towards building that MVP rate and trying to launch it, but also strengthening what we have built already in the back end to collect all the data and that it would be correct. Of course, I think that's like the key issue when it comes to the front end that we're building right now. Of course, we don't have the as we are still in this I would say idea phase still, then we don't have the extreme resources, so you have to do a lot of things yourself as well. So yeah.
But do you do yourself this technical things, or you hire some other people?
Those things that we know how to do, those of course we will do. I mean, starting with the idea, I think that we did a lot of things to understand could it even potentially work. But now we have engineers who are helping us a bit with the front end and the back end. So,
sure. But this is in your previous career in the supply chain management, and did you do already, I don't know, as a hobby or as a side activity, some kind of programming or IT stuff? How good you are with this? It's something very new.
It's new, and I think that right now for myself, supply chain has been interesting, but I feel that I would like to do something else, and that's where I came. I've always wanted to try and build a business. I have tried previously, but I have failed in different industries. And with this idea, I feel that it really helps people, which is a positive advantage. And I see that that's why I feel that this could potentially work. And I haven't really previously been, I mean, I have worked, of course, with digitalization and some parts of it, but I mean, that was very, very minor. But I mean, IT is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I don't have any coding experience or front-end development experience, but I think it's a part where you do and you learn a lot, so I think that's...
But right now, how do you divide with your partner? You are more into technical topics, or you are more on the business side?
Right now, I've been, I would say that a bit of both. For the back end and data and analyzing what we have, that is right now my business partner, who is mainly focused on that and discussing with developers the technical requirements that we need. That's been all him, and he's done a fantastic job. For me, it's been more about the business side, and also I've been working on the front end part right now, using WordPress and whatnot. So that's been quite an interesting journey. So I mean, at the end of the day, we do what is required, right? So to get it launched, it doesn't. Yeah. Business planning and financial planning has been my role more.
Mm-hmm. But how did you arrive to this idea? Was it during your time in Ericsson?
It was a bit after. I would say that it was I think fine. I wrote, I think in LinkedIn, I wrote one of the posts as well, that today I think it's very, very hard to find a business idea. And even if you do, then there's probably somewhere who has done it before, failed or achieved something. It doesn't really matter. And I think we had with my business partner, we had multiple calls, and this was over months to understand. Do you have an idea? Oh, I have an idea, and we would pitch those ideas to each other, and he would ask me very tough questions. I would ask him tough questions. And then one night I just thought that, oh, we have this inflation problem. So if we have this inflation problem, what can we do, right? Mm-hmm. And then somehow this came to me, and I was missing a link. So I pitched this idea to my business partner, and he came with, the platforms that are already there, why don't we do it better with different features? And there was a like, I won't go into details what the feature was, but that was like the missing link. And then it started to come together, and we saw that we started mapping out and different data that we need, and we saw, oh, there's something. So let's pursue that idea.
Your business partner, is it your friend, or how the age difference?
So this is so he was my manager in ABB.
Oh,
and I think that in various positions, when you have a very good manager, then you always remember that good manager. I don't know what it is.
You're keeping in touch also?
Yeah. We were keeping in touch for, I think, throughout, from ABB until until today, right? So
she was from the ABB times.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's a long time, right? And of course, in different career paths, we still kept in touch and so on. So, and then we knew that we both want to do something else, and we both want to develop something. What it was, we didn't know, but then we somehow came to this idea, and then started pursuing it.
So do you feel this is, in some sense, he is a mentor to you?
Yeah, he's been a mentor for me, I think, whether he knows it or not. I don't know that part. I probably does. For a long time. And I think that his opinion matters to me a great deal, whether I like it or not. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't agree with him at all, but I know he's right.
But really great to hear that you have such an experienced partner. And I believe this gives you also a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Because it's understandable in the beginning, and lots of risks
Exactly.
taken with that. And if we also look into your background, you worked in ABB, then Rimi, then Ericsson, and then what I noticed was interesting that you arrived to Ericsson straight away to the line manager position.
Yeah.
And how was this experience? I mean, in the Rimi, you were not the line manager.
I was.
You were
as well. Yeah.
So you're coming from one organization to another organization as a line manager.
Yeah.
How was that experience? Was it very steep learning curve? Or?
I think it was. I think that first of all, it really depends what type of leader or manager the organization wants you to be, right? You have some values, you have criteria, and what do they want you to achieve? And I think that really defines on what type of leader or manager or maybe both, right? You want to be or can be. And I think everything I did wrong in my previous job, I did wrong again. And then getting an absolute new team after I can't remember, was it 6 or 9 months? I don't remember right now. Then was the learning curve that I can do everything again, right? So start fresh and try again. And still mistakes were made. I'm not a lot of mistakes were made, but you learn from those mistakes and you try and do it better and differently and try and.
Talking about mistakes, you also in a previous answer you mentioned that you tried different business initiatives, or not business but overall initiatives, and you failed there.
Yes.
So, what are the, I would say, like top 3 lessons learned from those failures you made?
Okay. I think the first part is definitely when you're finding a teammate, or if you're even trying to find a teammate to develop an idea, I think it's very important that you find someone that complements what you don't have. And I think having like a very, very solid team and teamwork, I think that's one of the fundamentals definitely of any successful business. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are. So finding that person and who is actually knowledgeable about that industry. I'm not saying I'm knowledgeable about retail per se, but I'm saying that I have that experience to help me with this idea today, right? So first point is definitely finding a teammate. And the importance of them having those skills that you don't have. Second thing is that first of all, an idea is great, but the execution is much more different. So understanding, does that idea that you have, can that be converted into a business, and understanding, is there actually a business case behind that idea? Can that generate profits or money and so on? So market research and definitely looking into data and other aspects in order to build a business case at all. And I think that the third part is really taking the time and understanding who your customer is. I think that's the most vital thing. If you understand who your customer is, then you will also understand how to build a business around it, right? So I think those are the 3 key issues there. That definitely.
If we talk about Bebo,
yeah,
who is your customer? How would you describe, let's say, single like person portrait of the?
I would say that right now in Estonia, it's anyone who is buying groceries in an e-shop, but if we like put it into segments, a customer who is very price driven and shops around 1 to 3 times a week. I would say that would be our customer right now.
Right. But when it comes to targeting those customers, how do you find them, or do you already have some kind of focus group with whom you're testing new ideas? Or?
So when we let's say pre-launch right now, where we came out with an article, the idea was to that audience that was reading the article drive that traffic towards our site. On our site, we had a questionnaire to understand what people need the most. And basically, we got a lot of insights about what our price point can be, what is the most important thing for our customers, what features they would like to see. So I would say that was one of the important things, and everything we're doing now has evolved really around that in order to build the product itself. So yeah, that was one of the aspects that we did right now as a, let's say, pre-launch or how to say.
But coming back to the topics of the leadership and management, imagine this situation where you have a team of, let's say, 20 people, and then for the last quarter, 5 people, they just left. And you see that other people now in this quarter also applying. So there is some kind of issue with turnover. Yeah. So how would you retain the people in your company? How will you handle this situation?
Yeah, I had a similar situation. I think that first of all, my action is already too late per se. If people are, I mean, it's okay that people look around. That's not the issue. But the people have left. I mean, really to understand why those people have left. I think was it financial issues? Was it that they didn't like working at the company? Was it the workload, or what was those issues? And now those people are applying. It's okay that they apply. That's great. The question is that have they been in the company long? And why are they applying? Is it to gain, get a financial gain, or is it that they want to take the next step in their career, right? And really having those, I would say, one-on-one discussions with them, or reviews, performance reviews, or however you want to name it, to really benchmark then what are the issues, right? Maybe having a team discussion to understand then, are there any issues inside the team itself that anyone wants to bring out and addressing those issues, right? So the actions itself would be, defined after you actually understand what the issues are inside the team, and is it the new team? Is it the adopted team, right? So it really depends on many factors what your next steps would be.
Let's say it's a new team.
Okay.
And you are the new manager there.
New team, new manager.
Yeah.
So I picked those people, or? because then they wouldn't be leaving.
Yes. Well, I would say, well, this is it's probably the scenario in this case.
Okay.
But let's say the team was there.
Yep.
And you came. Yeah, you become manager of the team.
Okay.
Yeah, the manager.
Yep.
And then they started like people coming away, and you think you haven't done anything there. You just came to the team, but people are like moving away.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I mean, I remember having the same situation, and you really, to be honest, you feel as a person, you feel that you have, I'm not saying lost, but you have done something wrong, and that's why the people are leaving. And especially as a new manager, right? But I think that you need to fundamentally understand that it might not be personal, you know, people come and go, right? But again, I think it's very, very important to have those one-on-one discussions with those people and really understand that why, what is the issue? Are there even any issues, or maybe?
But let's imagine you got senior software engineer,
Okay,
who is programming for you this front end, creating full stack maybe, and both front end and the back end.
Yeah.
And you're inviting him to one-to-one discussion.
Yeah.
So can we model like what will you basically? How will you handle this communication? He told you before that he is like looking around, and people also, before you saw some other people, they were looking around, and some already left. And you are starting with him this one-to-one conversation.
Yeah.
So what would be the flow of that conversation?
With the senior engineer, then I understand, right? And okay, that's a difficult one. Well, I would definitely like to know then what career direction that person is taking, just to get a better understanding. What are they feeling? Are they angry at something? Maybe they want new challenges, right? Or maybe they feel that this job that they are doing right now is not meaningful enough, right? So I think that if I would structure the conversation, first of all, I would definitely ask, how are they doing? I think that's the number one thing. I think the second point is to understand then how do they feel about their current position, and the third is then what would they like to do in the future, right? Or near future, or in a week, or whatever the time frame is. And then get an understanding after that, then what are the actions they have done today, and what will they commit to the future. And per se, if that after that discussion they say they want to definitely leave, I think there's not always that many things that you can do as a person. I mean, if people have already decided, I don't think that you really need to convince anyone to stay. But
if that's the case, that the person says, no, I want to go, then what will you do? How you will accept it? You will accept, and you will start looking for them.
I mean,
or you will try to convince still the person.
I think there's like, of course you can ask that why and so on. I think that you can convince, or not even convince, but try to understand why, and then offer, maybe you have some solution to that, what they're actually looking for. Maybe it's not related to them changing a job, but maybe they're looking for new challenges that will challenge them in their daily tasks, right? And if you can try and figure out the solution to that problem, then I don't know if it is convincing or not, but I think there's a certain point. And if a person already has decided that they want to go, then, well, sometimes you just have to accept it. and move on.
Well, if we also speak about change management, let's say you have a team.
Yes.
And well, before we model this kind of scenario, I would like to, in general, ask, how do you understand and what is your thought about diversity and inclusion?
Accepting people as they are. Doesn't matter what gender, what nationality. Just accepting people as they are, as they come and go, as they say.
Let's say you have a team, or like let's say the company.
Yep.
And you have a choice to form this new team, and you have choice. You can put into that team all those who speaking Estonian, all Estonians, let's say, and boys, for instance. Or another choice you have is to bring one person from India, one from Estonia, one from Korea, another from Italy. What will you choose?
Well, I don't think that it, for me, in nationality, it doesn't really matter. I think I wouldn't. I think the question is not that what nationality is. I think the question is that what is the company's mind vision for that team, right? And do those people fulfill those criteria in order to take that team forward? So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what gender, nationality you are. It gives if that person can fulfill a certain role inside the team to increase that team's dynamic, then it doesn't matter. And I wouldn't ever choose as a lead based on nationality that I need to choose have this nationality or that nationality. It doesn't matter. Absolutely not.
But do you believe that it's actually beneficial to have diversity in the team?
Of course, different cultures, different perspective, ideas. Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course it helps. Sure.
All right, and a bit of maybe funny question, but still it's kind of valid scenario. If we finish this, after we finish the interview, and you step outside, and you find on the street this 10 million bank, like the check for the $10 million.
Yeah.
What will you do?
That when I get a check for 10 million, what will I do?
Yeah, you just walked outside on the street, and you found this, the paper is there, but it's absolutely valid. You can go and check out this money in the bank.
I just find it.
Yeah.
I find it. Well, that's a good question. What would I do? I don't know really. If it's someone else's, of course, I give it back at the end of the day. But if it's if no one claims it, then I don't know, put it into the company, build something with it.
But let's say you need this 10 million to invest into your company. We have like real need, and you find this, but at the same time you see there is a name, so you know kind of to whom it belongs.
I would contact that person for sure. But no. First of all, cash can be traced. And that's not the reason I'm giving it back, but I don't think that taking anyone's hard-earned cash is my first say. No, that's theirs, and I will give it back, of course. If it's if it belonged to someone, then yeah.
Great. And the final question in our job interview is, in this position, what is your salary expectation?
I love it that people ask that question. What is your it's very hard to determine a salary expectation when you don't know what the company is willing to pay. So it's like, let's have a guessing game. You guess a number, I guess a number, and then maybe we find a common ground. So, do you understand my point?
Yeah, but this is a very likely scenario.
Yeah, I know it is. So, I mean, today, to be honest, I look at what my expenses are, and I base my salary around that, right? And to be honest, I do not have a salary expectation for any role, because any role is different. And I think that in order to give you a number, you would need to give me a certain scale. Because if I make a too high offer, then you will say, no, I'm not hiring that guy because it's too much. And I mean, if I say a lower offer, then you might hire me. But at the same time, you might say that, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right?
Got your point.
Yeah.
But thank you. And this is we're done with this job interview.
Now the spotlight is off, right?
And now it's time basically to share your reflections. How did it feel? Was it similar to your previous job interviews?
Well, I think that job interviews are definitely like two-sided, right? The idea for the employer is to understand if that person fits to their whatever role, but at the same time, the candidate who is applying to understand if they want to actually work at the company, right? So I think it's two-sided as such, and leaving, let's say, 2 minutes. I'm not talking about this interview, but I'm talking about my own experience and mistakes I've made. Leaving 2 minutes for the candidate to ask questions is not acceptable. Please leave more time.
But what do you mean? Is it that people ask you in this job interview, the recruiter asks you the question, and then you're thinking to answer, and then before you give the answer or you start giving answer, the recruiter says, okay, next question.
No. I mean that what I mean by that is that you leave the candidate more time to ask questions than 2 minutes at the end of the interview. Okay. Do you understand what I mean? That the candidate, first of all, those questions toward you're trying to assess their competence in a certain area, right? And understanding that do they fit into the team culture and the company culture as well, right? But you need to understand that the candidate is also interviewing you to understand if that company is a good fit for them, right? And what normally happens is that you have, like, let's say, an hour interview. And during that hour interview, you're asked multiple questions. And at the end of the interview, you leave the candidate 2 minutes to ask questions about the company and the structure and so on, about the team. So I would say that it should be around about 20 to 30 minutes that you leave actually the candidate some time to ask about, what.
In your experience, did it happen often?
No. And it's sad because at the end of the day, as I say, an interview is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street.
So in your case, it was quite often that you didn't have enough time to ask your questions.
Yeah. And especially like the interviews I've been doing recently, I felt also that, okay, so when can I ask questions? And then it didn't happen, or I was left time where we needed to hurry up because, they didn't have time anymore to answer those questions. And then you would send emails later on, but it doesn't make sense, to be honest. So it's a two-way street always.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's also one way is if you give this enough time for the candidate to ask questions, it's still evaluation. How good are those questions and how well can they prepare it?
I wouldn't go. I mean, don't tell them that. But I mean, of course, that you through those questions you might really like get an understanding what type of person you're interviewing, and maybe find out about things that you wouldn't you get an understanding, or is that person, maybe if you're looking for a person in sales, right? So you need a very open person, and you need someone who can communicate really well. And during that time, it's a very, very good opportunity to understand that. For example, is that a person a really good communicator? For example, yeah.
But if you talk about this interview that we just now had, do you think from if it was like a job interview, the actual job interview, would it be something that you wanted to have, or what?
God, it was difficult.
Yeah,
You're asking. I think, of course, it would be, especially like with the resilient part and everything like that. I was like, what do I answer?
Well, I had actually one another extreme. I came to interview, and it was only written in the title of the invitation that it's interview. But when I came, I was basically asked, "How are you?" And then after that, I was basically told, "Your CV is so impressive. All's good. We're taking."
Win.
No, like no other questions. But this is leaders and engineers, and but this is just the title, but it's wider in the sense that here we're talking about leaders and who in the manufacturing industry, in the areas where there is design and engineering involved, and the science also involved. And normally I would say ask the question, what advice you would give to engineers who want to be leaders? But in this case, I would rephrase this and ask you, what advice you would give to people working in the supply chain management and electronics industry? What advice you would give them in regards if they want to become leaders? If they want to excel in their career, what advice would you give to them?
That's an interesting question, because I started thinking about my own career and thinking about how I stepped from a specialist position into a leader's position, right? And I think that there's no really wrong or right answer. I think that I think I wrote today that that you can, as a leader, you can demonstrate those qualities in any position. It doesn't mean to say that you need to have a team or you need to have that title, right? So qualities you can demonstrate: how you collaborate, how you communicate, are you supportive, empathy, everything you can actually demonstrate. And I think that definitely learn a lot, understand who you're working with directly on a day-to-day basis, understand how they think, understand people, how to talk with them, what makes them tick, what not to say, for example. And eventually you will get there. And once you do, then I would say don't be afraid to make mistakes, make 100 mistakes. But the idea is that you learn from those mistakes. Of course, how to get there is a different story. I think that you need to maybe have a bit of luck as well at the same time. But learn from the mistakes. And you don't need to always do as everyone else is doing. Try different things. Try different things. And once you have tried those things, then you will get the experience as well, I think.
Thank you. That was Siim Brazier in the episode of Leaders and Engineers. Thank you for watching us and listening.